You saw her once in a dream you never remembered, only the scent stayed behind. Not a perfume, not even flesh, but something older, like the memory of fire in a cave your ancestors died inside. You woke up with your hands clenched and didn't know why. She keeps appearing, doesn't she? Not just her, but the symbol. A flash of skin in the wrong room. A voice behind your shoulder that vanishes when you turn. A hunger with no mouth. You chase her, but the closer you get, the less real she becomes. And yet the desire sharpens. It's not lust. It's not love. It's not even her. It's something else. You say you want her, but what you really want is to be seen by the part of you you abandoned. The part that remembers the wound you made sacred. You kneel at altars of flesh, praying not to the goddess, but to the ache. You think you're chasing a woman, but you're just circling the void you sealed off with pleasure, and it is watching you back. What you call desire is the language of something buried, something older than your name. You keep returning to her image as if it holds a key, but there is no door. Only a spiral staircase leading downward into a place you refuse to name. Every time your hand trembles to touch her skin, her voice, her breath, something ancient stirs in the corner of your psyche. Not a woman, not even a memory, but an archetype, the face behind every seduction, the ache behind every smile. She is not new. She is the whisper behind the first apple ever bitten. And you are not in love. You are in ritual, in trance, in myth. You chase lust not because it is pleasurable, but because it is familiar. You call it instinct, attraction, animal nature. But beneath all that, it is a symbol. You have mistaken the body for the spirit it represents. You think her hips offer you freedom. But what they offer is a door, and that door doesn't open outward. It leads into you, into the cavern you sealed shut long ago. Where the red room still breathes, desire is not the flame. It is the smoke that rises when something sacred burns. You follow it without knowing what has been set on fire. You mistake the signal for the source. She enters the room and your soul turns toward her like iron toward a magnet. But the pull has nothing to do with her. She is only the silhouette cast by something older, something beneath her skin that mirrors the thing beneath yours. You see, it was never about her. It was about the wound she activated, the wound shaped like a woman, but deeper than flesh. She is the guardian of the threshold, not the reward. And yet you throw yourself at her feet as if she were salvation. But the unconscious is not kind. It doesn't grant pleasure, it demands sacrifice. There is a garden in you, overgrown, forgotten. You once buried a truth there, thinking you were burying pain. But truth does not rot, it grows roots, and now it flowers in the form of obsession, of fixation, of needing her to look at you like your mother never did. This is not erotic, this is archetypal. Every lust is a reenactment, every moan, a cry for the original wound to speak. You say she makes you feel alive, but it's not life you're feeling. It's the reanimation of your shadow, the part you left behind when you chose to be acceptable. You dress it up in fantasies. You say you want to possess her, but it is not possession, it is recognition. You want her eyes to name the thing you can't, the thing that has been following you since childhood, the hunger, the shame, the boy behind the mask. She touches you and something opens, not the body, but the vault, the red room where you locked away the first betrayal. Not the betrayal of another, but of yourself. The day you decided being lovable was more important than being whole. That's when the garden began to wither. That's when the red room was sealed. And now you chase women like thieves chase relics, as if holding them long enough might make the spell break. But it never does, because it was never about them. It was about the echo, the scent, the flicker, the flicker of the thing you buried, but that still breathes. Every woman you desire carries the scent of that burial. You're not attracted to her, you're haunted by her, by the archetype she unknowingly animates. And the more you try to claim her, the more she eludes you, because she is not a person. She is a cipher, a mask worn by the unconscious to draw you back toward yourself. You dream of her in impossible ways, not because she is real, but because your longing is. And longing doesn't lie. It just hides its true object. You think it's her body, but it's the feeling you had before you learned shame, before you were told your hunger was wrong, before you believed the wildness in you must be caged. You don't want her, you want to return to the moment before exile, to the self that was never split. But the unconscious is brutal. It doesn't hand you paradise, it drags you through the mirror. That is why desire hurts. That is why, after every conquest, you feel emptier, because what you captured was never the thing you were chasing, only a reflection of it. The hunger remains, the void deepens. You think lust is a path to wholeness, but it is a map of fragmentation. Every time you touch her, it is not union, you feel it is distance. A brief merging followed by collapse. You are not merging with her. You are merging with the part of yourself you keep exiling. She is only the excuse. What if the lust was never meant to be fulfilled? What if it was the flare of a buried truth demanding to be seen? What if she was the smoke, but you were the fire? And this entire chase was never about pleasure, but about remembering. The red room waits, not to be escaped, but entered. She cannot lead you there. Only your own hunger can. But you must stop mistaking her for the door. You must stop trying to climb inside her in order to escape yourself. The unconscious does not permit shortcuts. It demands confrontation. And so the garden grows wilder. The flowers open and bleed. The red room pulses in your dreams, and you keep reaching for her, not knowing you're reaching into your own abyss. The same hands that tremble for her skin are the hands that sealed your truth away. You will return to her again. You always do. Not because she is salvation, but because the archetype never sleeps. You are being hunted not by her, but by the part of you that refuses to remain buried. That part speaks in images, in symbols, in lust. And until you listen, it will keep using her face. This is not romance. This is initiation. And you are not the hero. You are the offering. You don't lust after her body. You lust after the self you abandoned long ago. You see her, but what you're really seeing is the shape of your own fracture dressed in skin, centered in temptation, moving through the room like a flame looking for something dry to burn. She doesn't know it. She doesn't have to. She's merely the projection screen for the image you have forgotten, but never erased. You think you want her body, but bodies are not what haunt you. It is your own reflection, distorted through longing, smeared across her silhouette, that pulls you in with such violence. This is not about her lips or her voice or the curve of her spine when she walks away. It is about the mirror covered in dust, or no covered in ashes. Ashes from the parts of yourself you set on fire just to be accepted. The parts you deemed too wild, too much, too soft, too sacred. You burned them to survive. And now you chase women, not to possess them, but to try to find, through their gaze, the man you buried. And when she looks at you, something flickers, not validation, recognition, but it's fleeting, because it's not her job to hold what you abandoned. So she turns away, or she loves you in ways that don't reach the wound, or she becomes cruel, not because she is cruel, but because you made her carry something too heavy. You wanted her to see you so you wouldn't have to, and when she doesn't, the rage comes, or the withdrawal. Or the spiral. You say she rejected you, but what really happened was the mirror cracked again, and you don't want to see your reflection if it isn't beautiful. So you blame her, you deify her, you demonize her, anything to avoid the deeper truth that your hunger has nothing to do with her. There is a boy in you still staring at the door that never opened, a boy waiting for the look that never came. And every woman since has been asked to answer that silence, but no one can, because the silence is older than any of them. It is the sound of your soul folding in on itself. Desire, when it festers, becomes a mask for abandonment. You call it passion, but passion doesn't leave you hollow. Passion doesn't twist your gut when she doesn't text back. Passion doesn't rot you from the inside when her attention turns away. That is the ache of something deeper. That is the shadow saying, "You left me." You didn't want a lover. You wanted resurrection. You wanted her body to give you back the parts of yourself you were told to kill. But bodies are not altars. Flesh does not raise the dead. And so you touch her again and again, and find yourself lonelier after every moan. Because she is not what you miss. What you miss is the moment before the fracture, the self that breathed without permission. But that self is not in her arms. It is in the mirror, the one covered in ash, the one you never dared to wipe clean. So instead, you keep dancing the same pattern: attraction, possession, disappointment, withdrawal. Each time, you call it fate, or chemistry, or just bad luck. But it's none of those. It's a loop, a psychic loop. You keep chasing her image, hoping to outrun your own. But the unconscious is not linear. It doesn't forget. It repeats until you see. She may be beautiful, she may be kind, but you don't love her. You love how she makes you forget. You love the way her eyes distract you from the hunger clawing beneath your ribs. You love the moment she says your name, because for a second, it silences the voice inside you that says you are not enough. But that voice always returns, and louder, because it knows what you've done. It knows who you've made her become. You say you love her, but what you really mean is that you need her to be the witness, the one who sees what you cannot. But she is not a witness. She is a wanderer, and your need turns to poison, because you cannot worship someone and consume them at the same time. You want her to hold you, but only in a way that never exposes you. You want her to kiss you, but only on the parts you have polished. And when she touches the real, the raw, the broken, you flinch. You flinch because you see yourself, and you hate what you see. That hate is the true desire, the real lust. The lust to destroy what reminds you of your own abandonment. You want her, but also you want to ruin her, not because you are cruel, but because the child in you believes love must cost something. And if it doesn't hurt, it isn't real. So you create the hurt. You push her away, you pull her back. You make her feel like a god and then turn her into a ghost. All of it theater, ritual, the dance of the divided self. And yet, underneath, something knows, something watches. The soul is patient. It does not condemn. It simply waits. It lets you exhaust yourself in flesh and illusion until you collapse at the feet of your own reflection. And in that moment, if you are willing to lift the mirror, to wipe the ash, you may see him, the one you lost. The one who wept when you chose to perform instead of live. The one who screamed in silence every time you said, "I'm fine." You may see him, but you will not recognize him, because you've spent years sculpting masks. You no longer know your original face, and that is why she doesn't satisfy you, because she can only meet what you reveal. And you have never shown yourself. Only the armor, only the ache disguised as charm. So she leaves, or you leave her, and it begins again. But the mirror remains, covered in ash, waiting, silent, And maybe one night, after the last fantasy has died, after the final moan has faded, after the newest lover turns cold, maybe then you will sit before it, not in rage, not in sorrow, but in stillness, and you will look and not turn away. And when you do, you may see that what you thought was lust was a search for home, not a place, not a person, but a self that was never lost, only hidden beneath the layers, beneath the shame, beneath the centuries of pretending to be a man when all you really wanted was to be whole. The mirror does not lie, but it does wait, and it knows your name. The thing you chase becomes the thing that devours you because it was never her. It was the shadow. She said something simple, you don't even remember what. A word, a glance, a breath drawn in too slowly, and yet it cracked something. You smiled in return, of course. You always smile, but deep in your gut, something shifted. You felt it, the old unease, the breathless twitch beneath desire. Not joy, not fear, recognition, the same sensation you felt as a boy. Hiding from the thing you couldn't name, but always felt, watching. You never knew it then, but now it walks in heels, it wears perfume, it smiles sweetly as it cuts you open. You think she's the one, but everyone has worn the same dress, and beneath the lace, the veil, the softness waits the wolf, not a predator of the forest, but a predator of the psyche, a figure from the dream world. She doesn't devour your body, she devours your illusion. She is not cruel, she is necessary. She arrives when you are close to the threshold, when your mask begins to crack, but you refuse to remove it. So she rips it off for you. Every time you've wanted her more than breath, more than food, more than your own sleep that wasn't romance. That was the unconscious closing in. That was the shadow saying, if you won't come willingly, I will come as her. And she does. And you fall, because falling feels like being chosen, like being seen, like home. But it's not home you're falling into. It's the underworld, and she is your guide. You say she betrayed you, but it wasn't betrayal. It was revelation. She showed you what you were really chasing, not her, but the mirror she held. You were never in love with her soul. You were in love with your own fantasy. And when she stopped playing the role, you felt rage or despair or nothing at all. Because without the projection, she becomes human. And you don't want a human. You want a goddess, a mother, a savior, an excuse. That's why she begins as a dream but always ends as a disappointment. Because no woman can carry the weight of your unlived life. No body can swallow your hunger without turning hollow. She was never built for that. And yet, you placed her on that altar, draped her in the wedding dress of your forgotten need, crowned her with your loneliness, and fed her to the wolf inside you, the one you thought you could hide. But you can't hide from the shadow. It knows your scent. It lives in your breath. It smiles through your charm. It watches through your lust. Every orgasm is just its tail flicking. Every heartbreak, its claws sharpening. You think it waits in the dark, but it doesn't. It walks beside you. And when you point at her and scream, "She hurt me," the shadow just nods. Because it knows it wasn't her. It was the part of you you refused to face. She became the wolf because you turned her into a myth. And all myths end in blood. Not hers, yours. You sacrifice yourself at the altar of illusion, over and over, thinking this time will be different. But the pattern always returns, because you haven't. You're still running from the mirror, from the boy, from the silence. You crave her touch, but fear her eyes, because eyes see. And what if she sees the rot? What if she sees the smallness, the ache, the softness? You want her to touch your soul, but only if it doesn't sting, only if it doesn't reveal the truth, that you feel like nothing, that you've always felt like nothing, that without her gaze, you disappear, so you chase, you seduce, you perform, not to possess her, but to delay that vanishing. You use lust like a flare gun. Maybe if she moans your name, it will echo loud enough to prove you're real. But echoes fade, and when they do, you're left with yourself. And yourself is not enough, because you decided that long ago. And every woman since has been sentenced to prove you wrong. And when they fail, you punish them, or abandon them, or punish yourself. All of it ritual, shadow play. The wedding dress was never white. It was soaked in ancestral hunger. And the wolf was always you. You wore her face, hunted your own psyche, and called it romance. She was just the mirror, but you shattered her, blamed her, and called yourself the victim. But the unconscious keeps score. And now the pattern repeats. She doesn't call back, or she sleeps with someone else, or she stays, but looks at you differently. And that look, it kills you, because it says what you fear most. I see you, and I'm not impressed. That's when the mask falls. That's when the boy screams. That's when the shadow smiles. You don't want her anymore. You want revenge, not on her, but on the feeling of being small, unworthy, replaceable. You want to make her ache the way you do, but it won't work, because even if she cries, it won't fill the void. Even if she begs, it won't bring you back to yourself, because what's missing was never outside of you. It was buried, long before her, long before lust, long before you learned how to be desirable instead of real. So now, the wolf is full, but you are hollow. The dress lies torn on the floor, and she, whoever she was, has vanished. Not because she was cruel, but because you asked her to be everything, and everything is too much for anyone to carry. What remains? Silence, memory, the echo of a howl that sounded like your name. You stare into the dark and ask why this always happens, why you always end up alone, why no one stays. But the answer is simple. You never stayed. Not with yourself, not with your shadow, not with the red room, or the ashes, or the boy. You left, and now you dress your abandonment in lust, hoping someone else will fix it. But no one can. The wolf is fed now, but it will hunger again, and the pattern will return. Unless you stop, not to heal, not to forgive, but to face the mirror, face the ashes, face the wedding dress on the floor, and admit it was never about her. It was about the parts of you you refused to love. And until you do, every woman will wear the same mask, and every kiss will taste like disappearance. The bed is empty now, not just of her body, but of the myth you wrapped around it. The dress lies in the corner like a skin shed too late. The mirror stands across the room, unbroken but blind, still waiting for you to see what it never stopped reflecting. You reach for your phone, but there is no message, just the silence humming louder than your thoughts. You light a candle, not for her, but for the part of you that always dies first. The boy who once believed love could be earned if he just bled enough. Outside, the night doesn't answer. It never does. But somewhere beneath the ache, beneath the ash, beneath every woman you thought would save you, something breathes. It is not desire. It is you, and it has teeth.